Okay, so like, have you ever been scrolling through your phone, like checking out the latest tech, a new electric car or something?
And it kind of hits you, where does all this stuff come from?
Yeah,
Well, today we are taking a deep dive into the world of a mine planning engineer to answer that question.
right on.
We've got some really interesting role catcher articles to dig into for this deep dive, their career guide, some interview tips, even a glimpse into their platform. It's way more high-tech than you might think.
It really is. When I first started looking into this, I was pretty surprised by the sheer scale of what mine planning engineers deal with. It's like not just finding the minerals, it's designing this whole extraction
Yeah,
process.
and like years in advance.
Often, yeah, years in advance. And they have to balance, the economic needs, obviously, with safety and environmental concerns.
It's a lot. So the role catcher guide, it really emphasizes this idea of designing mine layouts, and they make it sound like a massive 3D chess game. You've got to hit your production targets, but then you've got to work within all the constraints of the existing geology.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy complex.
It is. It is complex. It really is. Imagine you're like having to map out an entire underground operation, but you have to think about like the stability of the rock, right? Potential water inflows, even seismic activity.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, a single miscalculation could have huge consequences. So these engineers, they rely on this. I mean, it's like a whole suite of software tools
Yeah.
to model and analyze pretty much every single aspect of the mine.
Wow. Okay, so speaking of software, the guide mentions Serpac, MineSite, Vulcan. I don't know about you, but those aren't exactly household names for me.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit about what these tools are and how they're actually used in the field?
Yeah, so think of it this way. You can use something like Serpac to create like a 3D model of a mine, right? Down to the centimeter.
Mm.
And then engineers, they can use that model to analyze like different extraction routes, simulate a bunch of different scenarios, and then choose the most efficient, least impactful approach.
Wow.
It's really taking something that's incredibly complex and making it, more manageable, predictable, and honestly, optimizable.
So it's almost like they're designing a video game in a way,
Kind of, yeah.
but with much more, real world consequences.
Yeah.
And these consequences, as you mentioned, environmental concerns, which are obviously more important now than ever.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think this is really where the role of a mine planning engineer is like evolving rapidly.
Yeah.
They're increasingly being tasked with, incorporating sustainable practices right from the beginning. So that's minimizing waste, reducing energy consumption, and even designing for reclamation, after the mine's lifespan is over.
So it's not just about like getting the resources out. It's about thinking about the planet while you do it.
Exactly.
It sounds like a really interesting career for someone who is passionate about technology, but also the environment.
Yeah, exactly. And that actually brings us to the people side of things, which is, I think, just as critical in this field as the actual technical expertise.
It really jumped out to me in the guide how they highlight those like softer skills.
Yeah.
Communication, collaboration, problem solving. They say those are really crucial for mine planning engineers.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you like unpack that a little bit? Why are those so essential in this field?
Well, you got to think about it, right? You're dealing with these massive projects,
Huge.
often in really remote locations.
Yeah.
You've got teams of people from all different backgrounds, different disciplines. So you've got geologists, you've got environmental scientists, surveyors, equipment operators. You've got the local communities to think about.
Right, right.
The list goes on and on.
So many people to work with.
Exactly. A mine planning engineer, they're kind of like the loading pin, right? The one who brings all these different perspectives together and make sure everyone's on the same page.
It's not just about being like a technical whiz. You have to be a leader, a communicator, almost like a diplomat in a way, right?
Totally,
Yeah.
100%. And I think that's why the RoleCatcher Guide,
Yeah.
they put so much emphasis on stuff like active listening,
Yeah.
conflict resolution,
Yeah.
even just being able to explain complex technical info in a way that anyone can get.
Totally.
Because, those are the skills that make a project actually successful.
Yeah, for sure.
Not just, on paper, but in the real world.
Right, exactly. Because, it's like they say, plans are nothing, planning is everything.
Right.
And speaking of planning, I thought the RoleCatcher interview prep materials were really interesting. Like they've got this whole section about common interview questions for mine planning engineers, and some of them are real head scratchers.
Yeah, I saw those. They're tough.
Yeah.
I think they're designed to, go beyond just the technical stuff and really figure out like how you think,
Yeah.
your problem-solving skills, can you think on your feet, that sort of thing.
Okay, yeah. So give me an example. What's like one of those make or break interview questions that might come up?
Okay, so how about this? Imagine you're designing a mine, but it's in an area that has like a significant cultural or historical importance. How would you approach the project differently than, if you were in a less sensitive location?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a tough one.
Right.
Because now it's not even just about the technical stuff. It's like you've got ethical considerations,
Yeah.
community engagement, maybe even navigating different cultural perspectives, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
The good mine planning engineer, they need to be aware of all these bigger implications and show that they can, approach complex situations with like sensitivity
Yeah.
and this real commitment to responsible resource extraction.
So it's not just about, digging up rocks. It's about like understanding the human impact, the long-term legacy of these projects.
Exactly. And I think that's a responsibility that, more and more mining companies are like really taking seriously, especially as,
Yeah.
the world starts to really understand the environmental and social impacts of resource extraction.
Right. It's like we were talking about before. Sustainability, it's not just a buzzword.
Yep.
It's a core value that's shaping the entire industry.
Absolutely. And that actually brings us to another, I think, really crucial aspect that the RoleCatcher Guide highlights, which is this idea of continuous learning.
Continuous learning, huh? That sounds important. Why do they make such a big deal about that in the guide for this career specifically?
Well, because, the mining industry, it's not static, right?
Mhm.
Like it's always changing. There are always new technologies popping up, like AI-powered analytics, autonomous mining equipment, stuff like that.
Whoa.
Plus, you have environmental regulations that are always evolving, like the global markets shift.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
And then there's this growing awareness of how mining really impacts people and places. So if you're a mine planning engineer, you got to be constantly learning, adapting.
Yeah, or you'll get left in the dust.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a career for somebody who just wants to like do the same thing forever. You got to be a lifelong learner, curious,
Always pushing the boundaries.
100%. But honestly, that's what makes it really exciting. Like imagine being at the forefront of, developing these new sustainable practices.
Yeah.
Or being the first one to use robotics in some like really crazy underground environment. The possibilities are huge.
That's wild. Yeah, it's almost like being an explorer, right?
Totally.
But instead of finding like new continents, you're finding new ways to, get the resources we need responsibly.
Likely. And that's kind of what we want to leave you with today, right? Think about it, your phone, your laptop, even like renewable energy, all that stuff. It all depends on mining.
Does, yeah. And as we're trying to, build a future that's more sustainable, the role of a mine planning engineer, with all that technical knowledge, the environmental awareness, the human side of it, it's just going to keep getting more and more important.
Absolutely. It's funny. It's a career that people don't always think about, but like we've seen in this deep dive, it's full of like crazy challenges.
Yeah.
Complexities, cool technology, who knew?
It really is. And we just scratched the surface.
We did. But hey, listeners, if you want to dig a little deeper, RoleCatcher is a great place to start.
Yeah, for sure.
They've got those really detailed career guides, interview tips, salary info. It's like having a career counselor right there in your pocket.
Exactly.
So maybe this deep dive today, it sparked something,
Maybe there's a mine planning engineer out there listening right now.
That's right. And hey, whatever it is you're into, keep exploring, keep learning, keep asking those good questions. Until next time, this has been The Deep Dive.